બધા પેસેન્જર અંદર છે બધા પ્લેન ફાટ્યું પ્લેનની સવારી કેટલી થઈ ગઈ
The Air India flight that crashed was commanded by Captain Sumit Sabarwal, who had over 8,200 hours of flying experience. He was assisted by First Officer Clive Kundar, who had logged around 1,100 hours. The London-bound Boeing 7878, carrying 242 people, took off at 1:38 p.m. Shortly after takeoff, the crew issued a mayday call. However, after the distress call, the aircraft stopped responding to further communication from ATC. Shortly after, witnesses and ATC personnel spotted thick black smoke rising from outside the airport perimeter, near Ahmedabad's Meghni Nagar area. These pictures show a part of the aircraft stuck inside the students' hostel of a medical college in Ahmedabad. Of the 242 people on board, including 230 passengers and 12 crew members, 169 are Indian nationals, 53 are British nationals, 1 Canadian national and 7 Portuguese nationals.
It happened within minutes. The Air India plane crashed just over 1 minute after takeoff. There's shock, grief, disbelief, and a barrage of questions. How does something like this happen? How can a plane go down just moments after leaving the runway? As I've been saying, speculation does not help. There's a lot of conversation around this tragedy. Unfortunately, there's misinformation too. So we are trying to piece together the sequence of events. This is what we know so far. And these are the questions that the investigators need to answer. We'll start with the plane. A Boeing 7878 Dreamliner. These planes were inducted in 2012 when Air India was still in government hands. It was the state carrier. The plane was going from Ahmedabad in Gujarat to the London Gatwick Airport. It took off at 1:38 p.m. local time, and barely a minute after takeoff, the aircraft went missing on the radar. It was at a height of 625 feet. At this point, 1 minute into takeoff, it disappeared from the radar. This is according to a flight tracking website called Flight Radar 24. Now for context, commercial airliners fly between 30,000 to 42,000 feet. 30 to 42,000 feet. This one was at 625 feet. So this plane was still quite low. And minutes after takeoff, it crashed. This was a plane being flown by 2 experienced pilots. The pilot in command had more than 8,000 hours of experience, and the second in command, the first captain, had 1,100 hours logged. Moments after takeoff, they issued a mayday call. The Indian aviation regulator has confirmed this. This is basically an SOS call. So the pilots figured that something was wrong right after takeoff. There are a lot of theories on whether the plane was fit to fly. We have no concrete information on that front, nothing confirmed that we can share with you at this point. But we can tell you this is how the probe could shape up. It will be led by the AAIB, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. It comes under the DGCA, the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, which is India's aviation regulator. Their first task is to appoint an investigator who will gather information and data about the aircraft, when and where it was built, the plane's condition, and operation records. Next, a team would collect evidence from the crash site. They will photograph the wreckage, map parts of the plane, and preserve any perishable evidence or things that could get lost, like aircraft fragments. But the most important piece of evidence would be this, the black box. And the name is misleading. The black box is actually orange in color, and that is by design. It is built this way so that it can be spotted easily in the wreckage. This black box effectively has two recorders. The first recorder gathers flight data. It is called the Flight Data Recorder, or FDR. It logs all kinds of details like the plane's altitude, speed, engine settings, and even cabin pressure. That is the job of the first recorder. The second one records sound. It is called the Cockpit Voice Recorder, or CVR. It captures every sound inside the cockpit, the conversations between pilots, radio calls, even the background engine noise. All of it is recorded. So the Mayday call that the pilots made would have been captured by the CVR, the Cockpit Voice Recorder. Now, both these recorders are kept in hard casings. They're made to survive fire, explosions, even deep water and high-speed impact. So recovering the black box is key to any plane investigation. It may hold the answers to questions like what went wrong with the plane, was it technical failure, or was it human error? So investigators will look for the black box, and once all the evidence is gathered, it will be analyzed. That is the final stage of the investigation. Here, the team reviews all the collected information. They could bring in outside experts to analyze it, like senior pilots, plane engineers, aviation experts. Specialized labs could be engaged to assess the evidence, and once everything is in place, a final report will be written and released.
Very tragic and very, very horrific. And even till now, I have to say I'm in a state of shock. We are not going to spare anyone. We are not going to leave any stone unturned. We'll do properly according to the protocol, and we are going to go to the depth of why this incident has happened. That much I can tell you now.
India may also collaborate with international regulators. The US has already announced a team. They will be traveling to India soon to assist Indian investigators. It may take weeks, even months, for the full picture to emerge. Everything you hear before that is a theory. So wait for confirmation. I know it's a difficult and delicate time, and it's important to push for answers. We must know what went wrong.
Let's bring in transportation reporter Sam Sweeney and ABC News contributor and aviation analyst John Nance. Sam, any sense of what went wrong here?
Diane, it's way too early to speculate on this, but, you know, this was not a nosedive. This plane had just taken off. We've seen videos circulating on social media showing it almost looks like it's landing. It's coming down at roughly 500 feet per second on a glide scope, so not a nosedive. The landing gear was still down. This signifies some sort of loss of power. And of course, we now know that the captain did make some sort of a mayday call, but then that was it, and we did not hear what the issue may have been. So now investigators are going to rush to the scene. They're going to pull those black boxes, and they're going to go through the data. They're going to see what was going on in that plane. What were the inputs? Where were the flaps? What were the engine power settings? Was there something that was put into the engine, into the computer system that was bad data? That maybe the engines simply didn't have enough power? Or was there some problem with the engines? Was this dual engine failure? That's what they need to figure out.
John, this is the first crash involving a Boeing 787 Dreamliner. Is there anything that sticks out to you about that plane?
And the judge didn't say what the issue.
There's nothing in particular about the airplane because this has been a superlative machine ever since it came out of the factory. This is the first fatal accident, as you said. And Sam has it right when he's talking about the fact that there's a potential that this was a loss of engine power. That's what I see out of the videos that I've already taken a look at. You don't have an airplane doing what this one is doing and have power still on it. And that's one of the areas they're going to be looking at first.
Sam, what about the pilot? What do we know on that front?
Pilot had 8,200 hours of experience. This was an 11-year-old plane, and it was loaded with fuel. It was going from India to London Gatwick Airport. That's roughly a 10-hour flight, so you can imagine with all that fuel, and you have impact with the building, the explosion there. We don't know about the co-pilot yet. Or any of the passengers on board, what their conditions may be. But this, based on the images alone, is quite serious and would be difficult to survive.
John, what are you watching for next year?
Basically, you rule nothing in, you rule nothing out at the beginning of this sort of an accident. But there are incredible indications here that we're going to be able to triangulate with a lot of different video. This is a different age than it was 10 or 20 years ago. We have actual video of crashes that can help anybody who's investigating it very, very profoundly.
Maggie, what are you listening for in terms of guidance on the emergency response underway right now?
Well, right now that emergency response is currently underway. We've heard from local police on the ground that they are dedicating all available resources. We've heard from Air India saying they're supporting in any way that we can. And the fact that now Prime Minister Modi has also been very outspoken, calling this a tragedy for the country, calling it heartbreaking. Can imagine that they're going to dedicate all resources possible. This is one of the largest, if not the largest, plane crashes ever in the history of India. So this is something that's going to really have ripples throughout the entire country and also the aviation industry there, Diane.
And Sam, I mean, this happened often when we see plane crashes in a rural area and not a lot of people on the ground. I mean, this is a busy area of the city. Walk me through what that does in terms of the investigation and potential damage here.
Well, it's certainly bringing up concerns right now because you see all those people around the crash site. Some of them are not first responders or part of the military, and they're sifting through that rubble, throwing pieces of the plane. When you have a situation like this, you want to leave everything as is as much as you can unless you are trying to rescue someone who has survived this crash. You want the investigators to be able to piece this plane back together to try to figure out what happened. That's called perishable evidence, and they need to get that immediately, and they don't need any interference from the general public. And the way this is going to work, India will lead this investigation, but they will likely bring in foreign investigators. And under international aviation law, companies like Boeing, they are going to be a party to this investigation because they are the manufacturer. GE Aerospace, they make the engines. They will be a party to this investigation. And it's almost certain that the National Transportation Safety Board here in the United States will also be brought into this investigation. And it's certainly possible that the so-called black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder and the cockpit data recorder, will be brought to the United States for a readout.
John, we were just looking at that photo of what looks like the tail of the plane sticking out of the building. I mean, some of the wreckage here, it's hard to even believe when you look at the images coming out right now. What's your reaction to that?
Well, my reaction to that is that it indicates that the airplane came in at a kind of a flat angle, and that is what we see on the videotapes as well. They had nowhere to go if they didn't have any engine power, and that's one of the principal questions, of course, is were they out of power? In other words, operating.
And Sam, any sense of any communications issues with air traffic control?
Well, we heard the Mayday call go out, but then again, as I said, that is it. But you just mentioned the tail, and we see that image on the screen of the tail sticking out of that building. That is going to make it very easy for investigators to pull the black boxes because that's where they are stored on the airplane. It's typically the part that is least damaged during a crash, and we see that right there. They're going to be able to go up into that tail, pull those data recorders, and get them to a lab immediately, hopefully giving us answers sooner rather than later.
And Maggie, this plane was headed for London's Gatwick Airport. Any response from that airport or sense of how this is impacting other flights now?
Yeah, well, the vast majority of people on board were nationals from India, but we know more than 50 people were British nationals. So this is something that is really going to strike people here in London and across England as well. We're aware that King Charles has been made aware and is following this as well. We also know that this is a route that's a direct flight between London, Gatwick, and Ahmedabad. So it's something that is often traveled. So you can imagine that this is something that's very close and personal to many people here in London as well as in India. And it'll be interesting to see if that route stays open. The airport in Ahmedabad has reopened. Right now, it's unclear what that means for flights coming from London, Diane.
All right, Maggie Rulli, Sam Sweeney, John Nance, thank you.